Be sure to go to flipsidegaming.com and use promo code 6 for 10% off on orders over $10. Do the same with the Grizzly Gentleman, 10% off at checkout on your fantastic beard products. Or you could shop via the TCG Player affiliate link in the description down below to help support the show. And last but of course not least, you can go to Grey Viking Games with the affiliate link below to pillage some sweet arena codes. What's up, Planeswalkers? Derek Six back for some more good old-fashioned Magic the Gathering EDH / Commander discussion here. And today I wanted to talk about how I play EDH and why. Some of you might be thinking like, oh, he's talking about like the fact that he's a casual scrub who only plays bad decks. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, like, literally, how do I play EDH? So first thing, since Spell Table came out, I have been able to play some Spell Table games. I mean, you've seen it on my channel. I've been a guest on some other places. I need to work on that more, becoming a guest on more places. But I did want to talk a little bit about how I store my decks, because I am a madman, and I have a large number of decks. I realized I screwed myself a little, because I put one of the binders that I need to talk about over there. But the way I store my many decks is in these, which you've probably seen from maybe the thumbnail of this video, I'm not sure. But this. Now notice, not all of these are technically full. You may have also spotted Yu-Gi-Oh cards in there. But for the most part, this is where I store my EDH decks. Some of them are waiting for EDH decks to be finished. Some of them are currently just the sleeves that I have decks prepared for that I just haven't physically purchased the cards for yet. And then others are like this, which is the planes. So these are all, I think, 82, 84 planes that are currently actually like official Wizards planes. I am considering making some of the fan planes because many of them are cool as well, and I really enjoy playing with planes. Yeah, that's generally how I store my decks. Now, I did say that I have a large number of decks. There's a lot of overlap between these decks because there's a lot of color overlap. There's only 5 total colors. I have a lot of decks here. Can't exactly have no overlap at all. So how is it that I go about dealing with this many card overlap without busting the bank? And this is what I do. You're gonna see my gross back for a second here. Yeah, I'm wearing pajamas. Shut up. Like my sweet pajamas. Anyway, it's not the right one. I'm not cutting this out. I find this humorous. I just put my foot in a bowl because my life is a mess. Anyway, this is what I do. I take all of the cards that I have in multiple decks. So, for example, here we have, Austere Command, Avacyn, Catastrophe. Austere Command is probably my most highly played card in EDH because it's a variable destruction spell, right? You just love to see it. Now, when it comes to the actual decks, of course, I have this in here. So let's go ahead and find it. Just find one of these cards. Yeah, boom. Austere Command. This is totally an Austere Command. And what I do is essentially I just have these cards in my decks. And hey, look, or Silence was also on that front page. I have these cards in my deck that are shared between a bunch of different decks, and instead of like constantly like moving the cards around, having to essentially sleeve and re-sleeve a bunch, causing wear to the card as well as wear to the sleeves that I'm using in the deck, what I do is I just play with these, and as soon as I have it in my hand, if I go to cast it, I just take it out of here real fast. Bada bing, bada boom. I played Austere Command. I'll go ahead and put the real one in my graveyard. And then since all of these are in the same sleeve, these are all in Ultra Pro sleeves. None of my, well, technically one of my decks currently is an Ultra Pro blacks, but I plan on changing that soon. So yeah, technically none of my decks are in Ultra Pros. So that means at the end of the game, it will be relatively easy for me to find those cards that don't fit, put them back in here, and we're good. So that's one of the ways that I save money, essentially. Because, Jesus Christ, they're so big! because I have a lot of EDH decks, and I don't want to buy multiple Abzans, right? This card, relatively expensive. We got this card. It's been reprinted recently. Relatively expensive. You don't want to be having to buy all of those. I don't know when I got this Cabal Coffers. I can't buy another one of those. I cannot justify it. Actually, I realized the other day that I own at least one Null Rod. This thing apparently right now is worth a little over $100, so I'm probably gonna try and sell this at some point. Because that's $100 that I can go to buying other cards that I need for decks. But yeah, like I don't want to have to spend a bunch of money on cards that I already own, right? Like I already own these cards. Just because I play in multiple decks, I'm not dealing with that. So yeah, so that's essentially how I play physical Magic. But online Magic is a little bit different. I'm gonna go ahead and show you that here. Really, that's straight up the wrong one. Do that. Boom! Hey, look, this is a program I use. Okay, now I just said I use Spelltable. Spelltable is now owned by Wizards of the Coast, I believe. I use Spelltable. Okay, the music is actually being heard. When I can. The issue is I started using Cockatrice way before Spelltable was a thing. Additionally, I used Cockatrice when I still had like certain cards, because Cockatrice for me was a great way to store lists and modify lists and edit lists. Now what I do, since Cockatrice is local storage, I have all of my EDH decks on AetherHub, and now wherever I go, I can just download, essentially export the decks from AetherHub into the current computer I'm using. Bada bing, bada boom, I have my updated decks. So why do I use Cockatrice? First reason, it allows me to test new cards without spending money on those cards if they turn out to be not good, right? There are a bunch of cards that come out each set that I want to check out. It would not be financially feasible for me to buy every single one of them for all of my many decks, test them, only to then realize they're trash, right? So since I have limitations there, that's one of the reasons. A second reason is the fact that the people I play with may not have physical cards anymore. So yes, if possible, I do prefer to play on Spelltable, because there's something that feels good about like having the cards in your hand and playing with them on a table. Something that feels good about that. But if my friends who I play with don't have cards anymore, because remember, I started playing this when Spelltable wasn't a thing, and some of my friends who have moved haven't taken their cards with them because they essentially only played within that friend group. Well, they don't have their cards. They don't have a way to play anymore except through Cockatrice. Now, I've heard some people obviously say they use like a Tabletop Simulator. I've gotten used to Cockatrice. I really like the system. It has its flaws. Do not get me wrong. But as for right now, I'm sticking with Cockatrice. Obviously, like, it's a really easy system. I'm not really good. This is not like a Cockatrice deep dive or anything like that. I will say I only use Cockatrice for EDH. I haven't really had a reason to try and test for Modern, Legacy, Vintage, anything else, just because it's not like I can really go to any tournaments. So I just don't. But yeah, so I use Cockatrice to test my decks. And some people, these are probably the same people who dislike proxies in general, some people would likely say that I'm stealing from Wizards of the Coast. Well, here's the thing. If I didn't have access to Cockatrice, what it likely means is that I wouldn't actually have as many decks as I do now, which means Wizards would have less of my money than if the other. And two, I would only ever update those decks when I'm sure that a card is actually good by playing with a fake version in real life, right? If Cockatrice wasn't here, I would literally just play with my friends via Spelltable, even if we're using like all proxied cards, because I don't want to commit to that payment if it's going to be for a card that I'm going to chuck into a Garbo rare binder as soon as I realize that the card's not good. So I see Cockatrice as a helpful tool. Some people do play limited on Cockatrice, and I will say that I don't think that that's cool, because I think in that situation it kind of is closer to stealing from WotC, but like WotC wouldn't be getting my money until I proxied with I played with the cards without purchasing them first, right? So if anything, Cockatrice helps Wizards make take my money. Let's see. There was one more thing I want to talk about with Cockatrice. Right. I mean, Cockatrice updates itself pretty regularly. You have a lot of cool options and stuff, but the main takeaway I want to have for Cockatrice is like, why don't I play Magic Online instead? Now, we've talked about me using Cockatrice to test new cards, but something that we didn't talk about is the fact that I don't have to buy cards I already own, right? This is my Rexiel deck. I own pretty much all of this deck. I think there are some slightly newer cards that I might not have acquired, or like some of the more expensive ones. And like this card needs to leave. I'm happy that I had access to Cockatrice because I was able to play with this card in my friend group, and we all collectively decided we hate this card. So now, instead of buying a relatively expensive card that I probably would end up cutting anyway, because I respect my friends and we all want to have fun when we play the game. We also want to win, but we want to have a good time, right? We don't want to be just super miserable, and this card led to too many miserable experiences. So I would have essentially forfeited some money, because I'd likely not get, I would likely not get back the money I spent into it. So I'm very happy for that. But I own the majority of these cards, almost all of these cards. I own in real life, right? So why then would I go to Magic Online to buy the cards again? Renting the cards just doesn't make any sense, right? Like, I don't want to spend overtime for something that I just own. In order to play in a system that feels not fun to use, right? It's not just that Cockatrice is, like, efficient. It's that Cockatrice also isn't a hassle. I'm not going to say Cockatrice is fun to use necessarily, but Magic Online, I tried it because I wanted to start making content for Modern Legacy. I really wanted to. But I tried to get into that ecosystem, that user experience, and it was trash. I hated it. So I just stopped. I was like, no, I'm just not doing this. I really love Modern, really love Legacy. Technically, I love Vintage, but only because I play essentially Null Rod Aggro. I play like Death and Taxes type. I think it's called Thalia Parfait or something like that. I don't know. I haven't checked on it in a while because I haven't had many chances to do any Vintage stuff. But that is besides the point. The point essentially is that I would need to reacquire cards that I already own. I understand it's for a fraction of the cost, but if my deck costs $300 across, like, I mean, $300 is a pretty decent EDH deck price. If I, have those $300 across, 20-ish decks that I own right now, I'm looking at a lot of money, right? Like, I'm looking at a decent amount of cash for cards that are in a system that isn't very fun to navigate. Additionally, my friends who I've played with since, high school, college, right? They would have to do the same thing, right? In order to play with people who I can currently play with right now for free, and honestly, not taking anything from Wizards, I would essentially have to force them to spend more money in order to play with a system that's frustrating and clunky. So that's why I play with Cockatrice. So I've been like hush-ish about the fact that I use Cockatrice. I'm probably never going to make Cockatrice content on my channel, just because I would much rather have the spell table content. It feels more like naturalistic and realistic, and it just kind of looks better. Even though a lot of the times video can be a little grainy, audio might not be mixed super well. There's always something about like seeing everyone's hands and like physically playing those cards. So it's unlikely that I'm ever going to be using Cockatrice. But I did want to show one last thing. It's going to be a short video. Shut up. I've stuff to do. I made this little box. And by little, I mean rather large box. So this is like my light box thing. I would turn it on, but it's a hassle. Not be able to see. This is very hard to hold properly. But these are little LED strips. I laid them out very poorly. This also like needs to be up here. But essentially, I plug this in, which is very difficult because this is facing that way, and my outlet is over there, so I have to like kind of string it around up on the desk and back. But this allows me to have my camera, which is you, mounted on here, looking down, and it lights up my cards. The issue is that I put them too low. I didn't take proper attention to the image that I was like basing it off of. So all of these should be much higher and like all kind of together. They shouldn't be spread out. They should be like all up here. At some point I might try and give it another go. Possibly just carefully peeling this up. I have multiple scalpels and stuff. I usually would check the electricity stuff first to make sure I could do that. And then, you know, just gluing it on in some other way that wouldn't disturb the LEDs. And then like moving it, or I might just make another box. I don't know what I would do with this one though. But yeah, I mean, this was a relatively easy box to make. It also didn't cost too much. I had to go to I went to Home Depot to get the wood, but I'm gonna tell you right now, this wood too thick. You could probably just get away with using like poster board or something. This is definitely Mark 1. I'm looking to maybe make a Mark 2 at some point. Ooh. Hassle. But it's very fun to play via spell table with a decent lighting setup, and be able to like actually talk with people. So I had not played EDH in real life probably since undergrad. Yeah, and I graduated in like 2016. I think it was 2016. 2012? Yeah, it was 2016. So I've not played like in real life EDH in a long time. I really would love to start traveling to like events and stuff, and hopefully play EDH with some of you or some of the other members of the Magic content creation community. But yeah, that's how I play EDH for right now. I would love to know how you play EDH. I've heard of a bunch of different programs. X-Mage, obviously Tabletop Simulator I talked about earlier. There's another one that starts with Spell, I think. But yeah, let me know how you play EDH. If you have a particular reason why you do, that would also be quite interesting to know. Yeah, I think that's it for today's video. Hopefully I will start getting more EDH content on the channel, but I am a scrub who really doesn't like to bother people, and I don't want to just randomly ask, hey, Twitter mutuals who are content creators, do you want to play EDH with me? I'm what's called a coward. So I'm hoping I'll get up some nerve to start getting more collaborations scheduled and planned and whatnot, so that EDH Monday will actually have, you know, gameplay inside of it. Tomorrow is Tau Tuesday. I have not gotten around to priming these, so I think what I'll do is I'll just show you like my process of creating the miniatures. I think that might be interesting, and I'll be able to use this little thing over here. So I'm probably going to ask the Discord community to ask me a bunch of questions, and then of course under this video you can feel free to ask questions as well, and I will answer those questions during the probably long-ish video maybe where I put a Tau infantry together. So yeah, I have a PO box. Feel free to send me some nonsense if you'd like. Like to thank my lovely patrons. If you'd like to join them in supporting the show, you find links in the description down below. Do of course hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff really does help out the show. And of course, until next time, all will be one.